Under this bill ba, is there any provision here that our bureauphile ay bibigyan ng armas to carry firearms? Is there any jurisdiction in the world that arms their bureauphile? Let me move forward, Mr. President. And as I mentioned earlier, is the BFP aware of how magkano yung total revenues ng national government noong 2019? Yung total collection ng gobyerno ng 2019 ng mga buwis?
We don't have the record, Mr. President.
Yes. You know, the sad fact is that we roughly collected 3.1 trillion in 2019. And then, in 2020, ang collection natin bumagsak because of the COVID. 2.8 trillion. Pero yung gastos natin lumaki. In 2019, we spent 3.8 trillion. In 2020, 4.3 trillion. At ang deficit natin in 2020 is 1.8 trillion. National government deficit. Ganun kalaki. And for the foreseeable future, in the next 2 to 3 years, that deficit will increase. Okay? Plus the Mandanas ruling with the IRA, and for next year, malaki ang tama sa national government because yung collection ng 2019, maganda ang collection, so may increase ang IRA, plus the Mandanas ruling, the IRA in 2021 is kulang-kulang 700 billion. Next year, it will be roughly 1.1 trillion. Ergo,
Yes.
the national government budget will roughly be cut next year by about 400 billion.
Yes, Mr. President.
Maghahanap ang Kongreso which projects in different departments na pwede mong bawasan.
Yes,
That-
Mr. President.
Yes.
If I may,
Yes.
in order to cushion the impact of the Mandanas ruling, the national government has devised,
No, I'm familiar with that. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, but the point is this. It does not caution the impact. Okay, the national government is saying there are two approaches. The national government is saying now, we will devolve more to the local government units, and there are some saying that the BFP should be devolved. Okay, that's one. Okay? On the other hand, may listahan na ang DBM na i-devolve. Okay? So,
Yes, Mr. President.
yung i-devolve na yan, ikakat yung budget ng mga yan at the national level. Halimbawa, DPWH, hindi na pwede, halimbawa, local infrastructure projects. Sample lang. Okay? I-devolve sa local na yon. So, may cut yung DPWH. Pag sinabi
Yes, Mr. President.
SWD, i-devolve na rin yun. Mga ibang social protection program. So, supposed to be LGU na yung gagastos nun. Okay? So parang ganon. Nevertheless, nabawasan pa rin yung mga proyekto, programa ng national government. We're hoping na yung perang ibibigay sa LGU, doon nila gagastusin. That's the point.
yes, Mr. President.
Diba? Oh.
Yes.
So it will be tough in the next 2 to 3 years. No? And the reason why I mentioned that is because in the bill, there is a time frame here of 3 years.
Yes, Mr. President.
Diba? Oh.
Yes.
Unfortunately, no? Now, you know, we discussed this in the LEDAC also, and I also recommended that maybe, so that the economy can continue to grow, maybe it's better than an EO, we pass a bill amending the local government code, mandating that the increase in IRA be spent for their local build, para infrastructure, para hopefully umikot yung takbo ng ekonomiya and more taxes will be paid. The economy will grow continuously if the local government units were to spend that money properly so that the economy continues to grow and we can collect taxes at the national level.
Yes, I
Okay.
cannot agree more to
Yes.
you, Mr. President.
Now, if we don't do it that way, the growth of the economy will be affected. And more so, for the remaining years, yung revenue natin mababawasan. In fact, because of COVID-19, our recovery, best case scenario, will be end of 2022. We will in effect go back to the level of 2019 by the end of 2022. That is the sad reality. Baka umabot pa tayo ng 2025 yung recovery. Yan ang masaklap, no? The timing, as I mentioned.
Yes, Mr. President.
For Kiko Pangilinan wanting to intervene at this juncture.
Go ahead, Sir.
Yes, with the permission of the sponsor and Senator Recto, just a very quick manifestation because I caught the earlier inputs and observations of Senator Recto about amendments to the local government code, considering the Mandanas ruling. We intend to file precisely a resolution to, in aid of legislation, to look into the impact of the Mandanas ruling and possible amendments precisely to the local government code. He mentioned fire protection as one such possible amendment to the local government code. We are also looking at amendments in terms of agriculture development and countryside development, Mr. President. So I really think the Mandanas ruling will be taking effect at 2022. And in the eve of the Mandanas ruling taking effect, I think it is incumbent upon the Senate to look into this matter and see how we can strengthen the local government code and ensure that the resources that will be plowed back to the by way of the ERA will be effectively utilized with a guidance from national policymakers. Just for the record, Mr. President.
Yes. To respond to that, Mr. President, I did file 2 bills in relation to the Mandanas ruling. I welcome a resolution so that we could have a full discussion on not only the bill but other aspects of the Mandanas ruling. So thank you for that intervention, Mr. President. If I may continue very briefly, Mr. President. So that is the reality we're faced with, no? Now, I agree with modernizing the BFP. I agree to help pass this measure. If the good sponsor and the BFP would be willing to provide us some data on the balances and more detail on the collections, then maybe at the proper time we could make such amendments to the measure, no? But I have 2 more questions, Mr. President, with regard to the bill at hand, no? The committee report, no? One I discussed earlier, there's a 3-year horizon. Incidentally, yung AFP modernization ba, meron bang provision na gano'n din na within 3 years or 10 years?
I'm not sure, Mr. President, but I presume na it's also time-bound, Mr. President.
Okay. But for sure, it's much longer than 3 years.
Maybe 5 years, 10 years, Mr.
Okay.
President.
And then the PNP, do we have a PNP Modernization Act?
Not yet, Mr. President. We're still itatackle pa namin yan sa committee namin, Mr. President.
Okay. So una yung BFP sa PNP.
Nauna, Mr. President, mas mabilis ang bumbero kaysa pulis.
Okay. I like that response, Mr. President. And I enjoy always conversing with the chairman of this committee, Mr. President. It's
Thank
very
you, Mr.
witty.
President.
Very witty. Now, Mr. President, meron ba balak din nga pala ba? Under this bill ba, is there any provision here that our Bureau file ay bibigyan ng armas to carry firearms?
Well, wala pa dito sa bill natin na tinatakil, Mr. President, but I heard that
Is there such a plan?
Senator Bongo would like to insert during the period of amendments about the arming of the Bureau of Fire Protection.
Yeah. Is there any jurisdiction in the world that arms their Bureau of Fire?
Meron ba? The Bureau of Fire are shaking their heads, Mr. President.
Are they shaking left to right or up and down?